133 billion pounds of food is wasted each year, and most of that comes from us. Consumer demand and ignorance of the law are among the principal reasons that supermarkets dispose of perfectly good produce. Our guest heretic, Evan Hazelett of ImperfectProduce.com, is doing something about it. Imperfect Produce delivers the freshest, less than perfect looking fruits and vegetables to homes throughout San Francisco and the Bay Area in California at a fraction of supermarket prices. Find out how to get your share and a special 50% off coupon on your first order today on the Nutrition Heretic Podcast.
Meet Gina. Gina wanted to lose weight, so she spent 2 years fasting, detoxing, and dabbling with vegan diets while practicing a shit ton of yoga to lose 25 pounds. But it took so long that nobody noticed. Then, Gina started Frenching her food by eating fatty cheeses, butter, sausages, and red meat, and lost 15 more pounds in only 2 months. Everybody noticed this time. Frenching your food unlocks the riddle of weight loss that skinny French chicks use to slim down, look young, and live longer despite doing everything wrong. Be like Gina. Start Frenching your food today by visiting nutritionheretic.com/Frenching.
Fat is bad for you.
I just pop a pill and I'm fine.
Meat is murder.
It's time for bad food punishment. It's time for real nourishment. It's time for the Nutrition Heretic.
The following program is provided as information only and may not be construed as medical or health advice. It is not intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any disease. No action or inaction should be taken solely on the basis of the information provided here. Please consult with a licensed healthcare professional or doctor on any matter relating to your health and well-being.
Hello and welcome to the Nutrition Heretic Podcast. This is Adrienne Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic. As you know, every week I love to start out with one of my pet peeves. So this one goes back over 25 years before I became a nutritionist, before I really understood what nutrition was. You know, I thought nutrition came in a box and a bag, but I wasn't necessarily very mainstream, so to speak. I was kind of on the road to where I am now. So long story short, I was living in the Bahamas, working for Club Med. And while I'm down there, well, just before I leave, I get involved with this guy who ends up being my husband today. So I want to move back to New Jersey. You know, of course, I'm like, screw this up, right? But while I'm down in the Bahamas, I meet this woman who also lives in New Jersey, and she is an HR person and helps me figure out how to get a job back in New Jersey because after I'm done with my stint in Club Med. So I come back to New Jersey and she's like, hey, look, you stay with me while you interview for some jobs and, don't worry. You don't have to pay me or anything, whatever. Godsend. So Friday night comes around and I come home and I see a whole chicken in the garbage. And I'm like, who the fuck throws away a chicken? I'm like, did it fall on the floor? I have no idea what's going on here. I see this chicken in the garbage and I'm like on the verge of tears. She comes home and I said, what happened to your chicken? Your chicken's in the garbage. And I said, what, did it like fall in a bottle of bleach? Like what happened? And she's like, no, we only like the breast meat. Mm. And I was like, well, you could make soup out of the rest. I don't know if you don't like it. Or you could give it to me. Totally just like a dream of mine, right? That you could just, oh, no, we just don't like it. Well, you can buy the breast without the rest of the chicken. It doesn't taste the same. Yeah. So she came up with an excuse each step of the way where she had to roast the chicken whole, couldn't eat the entire chicken, and therefore it was suitable for the garbage. Fast forward, I realized that by the way, making soup, putting the chicken in a pot of water and letting it sit unattended was too much work. So that was her excuse there. So, but I realized that she, one, was not buying quality food, so she didn't really care from that standpoint. But this is a huge problem in our country. And as a matter of fact, this is also, my one pet peeve goes into another pet peeve, which is these diet doctors who talk about food in terms of, it's only food. Just, there was one meditation that I had picked up and I was going to review it and recommend it if it was good. But in the meditation, he talks about how, you don't need that food because it's only food. It just basically saying, just starve yourself because you don't need to eat. And that is so the wrong message. I mean, look at the number of eating disorders we have today. I don't think that's the message we want to send. So, to make a long story short, this is why I have brought guest heretic Evan. Oh my gosh, Hazelett. I looked at your name and I had it spelled correctly, and spell check changed it to hazelnut.
Oh my goodness.
So
that's so funny.
And I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's not your name. Okay, so my guest heretic today is Evan Hazelett of imperfectproduce.com. And his mission, if I understand this correctly, is to keep the waste down, because even Agriculture Secretary Vilsack, a guy who I am not a fan of under normal circumstances, has estimated that there is 133 billion pounds of food thrown away each year in the United States. And that's just what they're counting. That's not the stuff in your garbage can. So with that, Evan Hazelett, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
You don't know how hard it is to not say hazelnut now.
Oh, I know. It's a constant joke when I was growing up. And I guess I haven't seen the autocorrect do that before, because I've added my name to all of my digital dictionaries. So it's really funny that you had that experience.
So tell us about Imperfect Produce, and what do you do? Where are you based? We'll get into how people can get involved with you later on.
Sure. So Imperfect Produce, we're based out of Emeryville, and what we do is deliver ugly produce right to your doorstep at a huge discount. So all of the fruits and vegetables that you would receive in your box, first of all, fully customizable, so you get to choose exactly what you want in it, which is kind of a distinction between us and a lot of other CSA programs, community-supported agriculture. We have both organic and conventional. Our goal is to fight food waste. So that includes all sources of food waste on the farm specifically is where we target. You get to choose organic and conventional. Organic is a little more expensive, conventional a little cheaper. It's up to you. But ultimately the goal to fight food waste on the farm, to raise awareness about it, and then to, increase access to affordable fresh food. Everything we get is super fresh, just harvested. We only hold it for a couple of days at most. So you're essentially getting all of the same stuff that would be sold in the grocery store at our guarantees, kind of 30 to 50% off grocery store prices. Sometimes it's more. We have special deals every week. So that's what we do. Again, we just expanded to the whole Bay Area. So we originally were serving the East Bay, that's Berkeley, Oakland, Alameda area. And now San Francisco, starting last March. And literally last week was our first week of deliveries to the entire Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh, wow.
So that's been a big push for us, and obviously an enormous kind of operational expansion. So it's going really well so far, up to about, I think, close to 3,500 boxes a week.
Wow.
And hopefully continuing to grow.
So how many people does it take to run something like that?
So kind of, I guess you would call it like the office staff. That's operations, management, marketing, and administrative stuff. So that's like 10 people full-time about right now. And then we have close to 10, I think, maybe 6 to 10 full-time in the warehouse, and then another 6 to 10 part-time. So, and that's all of the packing, sorting, receiving, handling, storage. It's a huge project. They do an amazing job. And then we have a third-party delivery service out of the East Bay that helps us with deliveries. So they're not our staff. They're helping us out with that.
Right. So what is the difference? I actually have two questions with differences. What is the difference in price that somebody might be looking at? For example, if this were the stuff that they would normally buy at the supermarket, the equivalent of, I don't know what the average box looks like. But I don't know if there's kind of an example of a box that you could say like, okay, this is, 5 apples, a rack of bananas, some pears, whatever.
Sure.
We have bananas down here.
Right. So we don't have bananas. That's another thing. Everything is 90% is California grown. And then we get some seasonal stuff from Washington, Oregon, Nevada, stuff like apples. And I can't remember. There's a couple other products. But so, it's mostly seasonal. So no bananas. Sorry. I know people love bananas. But there's certainly, by the way, a lot of food waste in that industry all around the globe. There's really specific standards for bananas. I won't even get into it, but that's a whole nother story.
Right.
So the most popular box that we sell is our small organic box. It's about 8 or 9 pounds of all organic produce, $15 or $16 a week if you stick with the default box. So, it averages out to about $1.50, $1.60 a pound or for organic. And then the conventional is down to $10 or $11 for the same amount. So around $1 a pound. And, again, with that 30 to 50% off discount in the store, you'd be looking at that small organic box of 8 or 9 pounds being more like $23, $24. So
easily.
Yeah, right. Easily. So you're saving a lot every week. And the way that it works is we build a default box that's got a good variety. So if in case you forget to customize, we want you to receive a nice variety of both fruits and vegetables in that mixed produce box. But again, you always have the opportunity to customize this. You could technically turn your small box into 1,000 pounds of avocados if you wanted to.
Right.
So we'd probably call you and say, that's a little crazy. Did you add an extra zero? If that's actually what you want, we can make it happen. But
Right.
But yeah, so you're definitely looking at a lot of like really awesome savings.
Right.
And, it changes as the seasons change. So citrus went out in the spring, and we got a ton of stone fruit in right now. And then we got some grapefruit and a lot of melons on the fruit side. So yeah, it changes what's in the box.
Now, do you get any restaurants who are really hot to get their hands on this produce? Because that's just got to improve their bottom line, don't you think?
Yeah. So the answer to that is yes and no. There's a lot of interest from restaurants. So I've spoken to a lot of restaurant managers and chefs who are like, this is amazing. I can't believe that we throw out food. I don't care what it looks like. I just want to cut it up and throw it in my recipes, and I'll figure out a way to make it happen. And man, I can save money too. That's awesome. So I think there's a lot of initial upfront interest. And then for the most part, our model, we're still not even a year old. I think August 8th is our 1 year.
Wow. Congratulations.
So thanks.
That's a huge amount of growth in such a short period of time. Cause it would just be me on a bike, if I was doing this.
Yeah, exactly. We've been really fortunate to be growing quickly, and but we're still not at a place where our model can serve everyone. And restaurants kind of fall into that category generally right now. A lot of restaurants, they want to be able to maybe change up the recipe the night before, or maybe they have a specific menu that they use all year long. And if we don't have the exact produce they need that week, then we're just not we're not necessarily as reliable for a restaurant that's even changing it up or staying consistent, because it's because all of our produce is seasonal, we're not providing the whole breadth of fruits and veggies you could get from all across North America, say, at any given time. So it's a little more difficult for restaurants to work with us. And then also at the same time, we don't deliver every single day of the week to every zip code. So if they wanted food on Monday and then food on Thursday, we couldn't do that. It'd be like if you were in a specific zip code, maybe we only deliver to your area on Thursday. So if they wanted to work with us, they'd have to make a really firm commitment to seasonality. They'd have to make a really firm commitment to kind of planning their menu at least a week in advance.
Right.
And so I think ultimately it'd be awesome to work with restaurants. We're just not quite there yet. We get a lot of support from them, but I think the types of initiatives that are more kind of catering based that we do work with are more one-off food events. That there's this awesome organization called Salvage Supper Club. They do like quarterly meals where they use food that would all have been wasted. And so we provided food for one in San Francisco a couple weeks ago. And that was an awesome way to kind of co-advertise our kind of mutually beneficial initiatives. But that was, more of a one-off event. So
Right. So, but there is this trend now with restaurants, and I believe New York has a popular restaurant now that uses just peels and the liquid that drains off the chickpeas, and just it's all their whole menu is waste.
that's awesome. Do you happen to know the name?
I cannot remember off the top of my head, and I wish I had thought about it before, when I was drafting up my questions, because as you're speaking, I'm remembering, but I'm pretty sure it's in New York City somewhere. The name might come to me before we get off here, but it was, I just thought it was very interesting. Now, some of the stuff, to some extent, I kind of think certain peels and things like that, they're peels for a reason. You peel a cucumber and you take out the seeds because they do cause gas and they make you burp and stuff like that.
Sure.
So I'm not 100% behind certain aspects of it, but the initiative is good. It's showing. I think where I'm going with this is that it shows the creativity that a chef can bring to the table, and if you keep doing what you're doing and keep making the awareness there is more opportunity over time for restaurants to start saying, you know what, I could do something with this. Like the apples, you can do all kinds of sauces and things that nobody would know what it looked like before.
Exactly.
It may not be perfect for fanning it out on your plate, but it could be perfect for something else.
Right. And I think that you're totally right on that. And I think chefs are often very creative people. So I think they are definitely a demographic that could really get on board with this. And especially if people are, open-minded to experiencing something slightly different. I mean, I think why else go to a restaurant other than to, what an awesome opportunity you have to have someone else cook for you. That's so amazing. And so why not open your mind to something that's potentially different, and what a cool way to do it by, recovering wasted food. And it's funny you mentioned the liquid chickpeas, because actually at this Salvage Supper Club dinner that I mentioned, the dessert had, I think it was kind of like a quote unquote whipped cream kind of topping that was made from the liquid of the chickpeas sit in, because it's got some sort of protein that's similar to egg whites. So that was really, really cool. There's all sorts of things you can do.
Was actually one of the recipes this guy was talking about that he was making. So,
cool.
It was, it's, there's so much potential there. And it may also be, when I go to a restaurant, it's more than just having somebody cook for me, unless I'm just on the road and can't get home or somewhere. But it's, for me, I want something that I'm not going to make at home. So,
exactly.
if I can roast a duck at home, I don't want to go out and eat roast duck. Now, I don't, I want something that's just going to, or that better be the best freaking duck ever.
Yeah, best roast duck of all time. Yeah,
right, exactly. There's another guy in New York, a French chef. I think he has like 2 Michelin stars, and he's got, he makes $130 chicken.
Wow.
But, I don't want to know what he does to the chicken, actually, because something has to be a little bit obscene about it to get it to $130. But they say it's the most phenomenal chicken you ever put in your mouth. So there's that too. So when people think of imperfect produce, I'm thinking that the average person, and of course our listeners are not average, but I think that many people will think it's the stuff that's rotting at the regular supermarket. How is imperfect produce not that, or is it that? I'm thinking this stuff is not rotting. It just doesn't maybe look as round an apple. Correct.
Yeah, no, it's not. And that's definitely a big misconception that we constantly have to battle. So first, what we do is, again, we get everything that is still super fresh, super healthy, totally edible, amazing produce that is the wrong size, shape, color for the grocery store. So to give a handful of examples, we get skinny asparagus, we get small avocados, we get, back in the winter, we were getting, if you've heard of Cutie, mandarin oranges are branded to be small. We were getting the ones that were too big. Right? We get zucchini that are a little curvy and maybe have a bulbous end that grew a little fatter. We get crooked carrots. We get small broccoli heads. So a lot of it is just size and shape. And one of the biggest kind of funny like responses we get from a lot of customers is like, I was expecting this to be uglier. Like,
right, exactly.
Because a lot of the photos we use in our branding are really ugly stuff. It's kind of a way of shocking people and raising awareness. But at the end of the day, I actually would say the sad thing is that the majority of the food you get looks pretty normal. And the worst thing you might receive is like I guess I shouldn't say worst, but the most unappealing thing you might receive is maybe an orange with a really scarred peel. But again, you peel that off, you eat the inside. So we get a lot of scarred citrus. We get a lot of our plums and peaches and nectarines right now have minor surface blemishes. I'm talking really small, that maybe it's overexposure to sun, so the skin turns a slightly different color, or maybe rubs up against a bark, or maybe even a bird like pecked at it a couple times and then it healed over and it's a slightly different color, like minorly different texture, but it's still a perfectly good peach. And so when, unfortunately, the grocery stores won't take this stuff. So when people are harvesting it and they're sorting it in pack houses, they have to discard a lot of this food.
That's ridiculous. I mean, it's good for you, but it's ridiculous that's and people complain about the price of food. Well, that's where the price of food is going to, because somebody's got to pay for that, and it's the person who is I don't want to say duped necessarily, but who is focused on only getting the best looking ones. Right. And I've got to say, though, where you live, I think there is an unusual awareness about farmers markets and imperfect produce anyway. And what I mean by that is these people who are complaining that they thought it was going to be uglier, they've probably been buying fairly ugly stuff for a couple of years now. Because there's no short, there are, I call them deserts, places like Chicago, where you're not allowed to have health food stores, for crying out loud. And so people there are kind of stuck with whatever comes in the regular supermarket, or if they're allowed to grow it in their backyard, which I don't know. But it is, I'm just going to say this, it is the seat of the American Dietetics Association. So I think it's quite interesting that no health food stores are in that state. In San Francisco and the Bay Area, there are a ton of markets. So I'm sure people are kind of used to seeing that, but that might be a little bit unusual in other parts of the country where they don't get to experience what backyard gardening or small farms can produce. Right.
I think you're spot on. A lot of customers will say, "Oh, I see this stuff at the farmer's market all the time," or "I see this at, Berkeley has an independent grocery store called Berkeley Bowl, and Berkeley Bowl does
I love that place.
Yeah, Berkeley Bowl's awesome. They actually do a really good job of. I haven't talked to them, so I can't say what their standards are, but I get the sense that, they're still in a lot of ways beholden to a lot of the mainstream grocery store standards, but they do a really good job of trying to sell the stuff that's like on its way out for cheaper. They have a good discount section. So yeah, people in the Bay Area have more exposure to this. Also, I'm from the East Coast, and it was one of the most amazing things moving out here was seeing all the people that have fruit trees in their backyards. Like, what? It's amazing. So plums and figs and lemons. And so people who have fruit trees or they garden will say, "Oh yeah, I mean, I get stuff like this all the time, and I get even uglier stuff than what you're showing me." So people do have a certain consciousness around here that you're probably right will be not as replicated around the country. So that'll, again, we're just in the Bay Area. Is yet to be seen how this will be received as we continue to grow and try to expand across the country. I think that, again, waste seems to be one of those things that everyone can get on board with, and no one supports, no one says waste is a good thing, So I think that will already be shocking to most people, even in places where there isn't a lot of awareness around food issues. And then the second thing is, if we're still able to offer you that huge discount, which will always be the goal, then you can't argue with a better price if the food is still healthy and it's still fresh. So kind of retroactively answering your previous question, no, we're not getting stuff that's on its way out. It's not rotting. And again, that is a huge misconceptions. So it'll be interesting to see how it's received. Yeah.
Right. Well, now this is something I picked off of your website. It was, I guess it was on your FAQ where the question was essentially, does it taste as good? And you say, yes, it does taste as good. And I'm going to actually argue with you on that in that I learned this from someone who was, quite literally dumb as a rock. Okay, I don't, I don't normally like to play like I'm so smart, but she was pretty friggin' stupid. So I'm from New York, I can't help it. But she lived in Florida, and one thing you can learn from anyone, right? I learned this from her, that the citrus, when it's got that scarring on it, actually is tastier than the citrus that looks perfect on the outside.
Oh, so you're arguing by saying you think it's even tastier?
Yes, that's what I'm arguing, is that it's even tastier because it's the way God intended it to be. You know, it's not manipulated to look a certain way. It just grows and the way it sees most fit to make itself more tasty. And
what I'll say anecdotally, the fruit that we've gotten is among the best fruit I've ever had. So that's hands down the truth. The pears we had back in the fall, the mandarin oranges we had in the winter, the melons and the plums we have right now are insane. So, first of all, yeah, the stuff we get, it's definitely been among the best tasting. Now, I can't say exactly why that is. It's possible that it's because everything we're getting is so super fresh that
right.
It's just fresher maybe than what you're buying in the grocery store. That's the first thing. Second thing, though, to lend some actually scientific credibility to what you're saying is that like there was a study, I think it was specifically done on apples recently. I can't remember the source, but there was a study to show that apples that had minor scarring on the outside had a higher sugar content, higher level of antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. And the theory was that the fruit produces that extra stuff as a way of combating whatever it is that's picking at it. So, I guess it sounds like, that stuff's good for humans. Maybe it's not good for the pests that, the antioxidants, the pests that are trying to get into the apple. So actually, yeah. So it's totally, again, I didn't run that study myself, and I don't know if they can extrapolate to all fruit, but definitely there's a possibility there that, right, it could be healthier and tastier.
I think of it as very similar, as a gardener, I think of it as very similar to the volunteers or the weeds that you get, right, that come up. Because you know that when you go to plant tomato from seed, you got to plant like 30 to get one, right? So one that's going to be really viable, or maybe I'm exaggerating, but you have to plant many, and with the understanding that several will die off, and there'll be like one guy or two or three standing that are going to be really strong and vibrant. And for example, my landlord had we used to have these big ugly red well, not really ugly, but just these big ornamental grasses that were kind of just overgrown. So she had somebody come and pull them out. I had been trying to plant lettuce and basil and something called callaloo, which is a type of spinach. From Jamaica. Well, in my culture, it's Jamaican. But anyway, I tried to grow all of these. The seeds would not sprout. He moves that stuff. A week later, I get basil, lettuce, and callaloo show up in the same spot that I have no idea how the seeds got there. But they are strong and they are healthy. I dug them up and I transplanted them to where I wanted them, and they're fine. They're perfectly fine. But everything else that I grew, as soon as it got like 2 leaves, some opportunistic thing came and ate them. So I kind of look at the imperfect produce as similar in that it's just the plant doing what it does best, like you say, for its survival. Exactly. And it's got the right combination of things to make it see its life cycle through till we go and pick it.
Right. Exactly.
So I think there's a lot to be said for that. And I have noticed with the scarred oranges, they generally I want to say that every time I've had one since I learned that little tidbit. Every time I've had one, it's been juicier than the one that was perfect next to the one one that looked perfect on the outside. It tends to be dry. Yeah. Not tends to be dry, but there's more of a risk of it being dry.
Yeah, exactly. No, I totally agree. I mean, it was essentially 10 out of 10. All of the menus we had, it was like every single one was insanely tasty. Yeah.
Right. So, like, how can you argue with better tasting and saving a couple of bucks every week? I think that's fantastic. Now, you were talking about possibly expanding across the country? Have you considered doing training programs for other states where you teach them how to do something like that?
Yeah, I think
like
that's
what you're
still
doing.
A little ways off. Our goal is to really. So again, last week was the first week of our full expansion to the Bay Area. So we need some time to really make sure that goes super smooth. We learn all of the lessons we can possibly learn from any minor mistakes here and there. Continue to smooth out the operation and iterate. And then the goal, I think, would be first is to expand along the West Coast, but to continue to kind of use this central hub as our delivery. So I don't think we're yet at a point where we're looking into figuring out how to create other delivery hubs. We're trying to see how much we can do right out of this area, and do it in a high quality way. So yeah, I think that's still a little ways off. But I mean, yeah, hopefully at some point we'll probably need an East Coast or a central in the central states a hub for delivery.
Right. So now, when people get involved with buying your produce, is it some kind of like weird novelty thing that they think they're getting involved in? Is it because but people have like these weird fetishy things. I don't know.
Sure.
What do you think is their motivation? Is it the price? Is it? I mean, at this point, I'm thinking taste. Is it something else? Is it just so they can one up their neighbors? Like, look, you got perfect produce. Look at mine.
Yeah. Well, I think there are a lot of reasons. We've done a number of surveys with our customers, and the two things, as we expected, the two things that seem to be the most, the biggest reasons people join us. Number one, food waste. So at least in this area, food waste is still among those who replied to our survey the biggest reason they get involved. And I think that's because, again, most people, no matter who you are, when they hear the numbers of the amount of food that we're wasting and how it's still super fresh and super healthy, they want to get involved. They want to support the cause. And that, I think, goes hand in hand with the food consciousness in the Bay Area to begin with. But certainly can imagine, once the rest of the country learns, obviously that it's an issue that's growing in awareness across the country. A lot of news media, national media even, is covering it. So clearly this is something the nation cares about. So I think food waste is a big deal. The second is the price. If you're saving money and you're combating waste, which is good for the environment, then yeah, it's a win. It's totally a win-win. There's nothing you can, like, how can you argue with that?
Right. And it's much, sorry to interrupt you, but it's much more dignified than being a freegan. And which is, do you know what that is? That's going into the dumpsters and garbage cans at the end of the night in the cities and eating people's leftover sandwiches.
I've heard about freeganism. Sure, yeah. I mean, I guess
that kind of turns my stomach. I don't know. Rats in New York. In New York City.
Yeah. I mean, it depends on where you are. I think that's a perfectly. If someone else threw it out and they're done with it and you're fine eating it, I think that's a perfectly fine way to nourish yourself, as long as it's still healthy and you feel safe doing it. I mean, it doesn't even have to be people's leftover sandwiches. I'm sure you're aware of all of the food that places like grocery stores throw out at the end of the day, and then they put them in dumpsters with these big locks, or maybe they forget to lock them sometimes, and then there's just pounds and pounds and pounds and tons of leftover food that's totally fine, that hit the sell by date, but it's still super fresh. So yeah, I think that's actually, if you want to commit to that. I don't know if you've heard of the documentary called Just Eat It.
I've heard of it. I haven't watched.
Worth a watch. Anyone who has Amazon Prime, you can stream it for free. At least you could up until a week ago. Sometimes they change those out, but check it out. It's also on Apple. I think on Apple TV. The educational cut's only 50 minutes. It's so worth a watch, and it follows a couple that spends 6 months only eating food that would be wasted, and the majority of what they eat comes from grocery stores, and you'll see how they just fill their house full of just so much food they can't even begin to eat. So I think that's a fine way to
Right. Yeah.
consume. But so I feel like I feel like you asked a question and I totally ran away from it.
No, I was just saying that it was more dignified than eating out of the dumpster.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, well, also you can know that you're directly supporting farmers. So you know, when farmers unfortunately kind of bear the burden of a lot of the perceived ills in our food system, and the majority of it's not their fault. The majority of it is structural, and so they're not discarding this food because they want to. They're discarding it because there are grocery store standards that are perpetuated by consumer standards that don't allow them to sell this food. So when you buy it from us, farmers are making extra money on food that, normally they would either get a really low price on something else, like sending it to be processed, fruit to be processed into juices or smoothies, or they'd compost it or feed it to animals, or it would just be left in the field, or a lot of it gets shipped to a landfill. So these are these are all different ways the food is still technically wasted because it was grown for human consumption as a fresh fruit or vegetable, and then doesn't end up in a human's mouth in that form. And so with us, you're in a sense you're dignified. I mean, you're saving money, and farmers are making more money. So it's an
absolutely. And I've been fortunate enough to spend some time on farms in other countries, and as well as farms here, where actually I haven't really stayed too much on farms here as much as I have visited the farms and see how the farmers live. And unless the farmer themselves actually comes from money and is doing this kind of as a hobby, it's kind of depressing often to see how some farmers are forced to live. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that they're being gouged by the big box stores. But then on top of it, there's this incredible amount of waste that they cannot sell, or at least they are so tired they haven't figured out another way to sell it. So that's why it's so wonderful to see something like what you're doing coming along and taking some of that burden off. And as a matter of fact, I have somebody else I got to line up soon who's using fruit waste here in Hawaii to create ciders.
Oh,
and
cool.
So it's going to be really interesting, like different types of tropical ciders. Based
awesome.
from like all kinds of fruit that we have here. So do you know anything about the reason why are these supermarkets not giving this leftover produce to food kitchens? Like I have 2 avocado trees that I shit you not, they will have at least 200 avocados each in my backyard. Right. When I talked to my landlady about it, and I said, I'm gonna, give some, I mean, I know she likes them, but there's only so much that, 2 families can consume. So we have a food bank down the street. I'm bringing it to them, when those are ready, because I can't eat all of that. And my kids could sell it by the side of the road, but for all intents and purposes, their needs are being met. So why not, move it, at least to get some fresh food into the people who can't afford. Right.
I would use. Oh, go ahead.
I was just going to say, what is the reason or the rationale why more churches are not normally absorbing some of this this leftover produce or these imperfect pieces? Do you know what I'm saying?
I think it's a complicated question, but I think there's a couple of reasons why, and it could be any number or combination of them for any source of food waste in the grocery store. So to take your experience as an example, so that's awesome that you take the leftover fruit that you can't eat down to the food bank. That's so cool. So I know a lot of people don't do that, even just in their homes. There's a lot of people in Berkeley, Oakland, who have fruit trees out back, out front. And oh my goodness, you should see the abundance on these trees. And I'm talking hundreds of lemons in one tree on one block, hanging out over the sidewalk. And you can see them falling onto the sidewalk. There was a fig tree in Oakland hanging out over the sidewalk. And there was literally like an old kind of crusted puddle of figs that had fallen on the sidewalk and people had stepped on and squished just over and over over the course of weeks. I don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure there's actually some sort of whatever law or rule that says that if if a tree is hanging over a public sidewalk, that kind of that fruit is up for grabs by anyone. So I took a bunch of figs, but again was like, wow, these people are letting their figs just drop onto the sidewalk and literally get stepped on by people instead of getting their neighbors or friends or volunteers to harvest it and take it to someone who can eat it. And then you multiply that by hundreds of thousands of trees across the East Bay, the Bay Area, that are just dropping tons of food on the sidewalk and in the backyard, and it's decomposing. So for the same exact reason, and I'm going to guess for most of those people, it's because they consider it an inconvenience, or they don't have the time, or maybe they just don't care. So that's the first kind of, I'll say, kind of structural reason why perhaps grocery stores aren't doing this. Maybe they consider it an inconvenience. Maybe they have to actually spend time and money connecting with nonprofits and churches that would take this food, and they've decided that's not worth it to them. And then maybe, who knows, maybe the store manager just doesn't care. I'm not speaking from experience. I haven't spoken to a store manager, so I wouldn't know, but I imagine that's probably one of the reasons. The second thing is there's a huge misunderstanding around donated food. So a lot of people don't know that in the 90s, I think it was under Bill Clinton, there was a law passed called the Good Samaritan Food Liability Act that frees from liability anyone who donates food in good faith, knowing that at the time of donation, it's safe, it was handled well, it's going to be transported well, and it was healthy at the moment of donation. So, and then they're freed from liability. If someone gets sick after that, it's not their fault. They gave it in good faith.
I actually remember that, I think.
Yeah,
it sounds very familiar,
Right, and a lot of people do not know that exists. And I think a lot of grocery store managers also don't know that that's a real thing. So, when you watch this documentary, Just Eat It, they go into the grocery store and they kind of ask people, why isn't this being donated? And the common answer is, oh, we'll get in trouble. Like we'll get sued. There's liability. And it's just not true. That's just not true. So whether that's their outward messaging or that's actually what they believe, that's a lot of the reason. That's the reason that they'll use often.
And I want to say that I've heard that as well from some institutions that normally, it's like, sort of like beggars can't be choosers kind of thing. Like, really?
Yeah. Right, exactly. And
you're shopping at the dump and you don't know that things may not be perfect.
Right. No, exactly. Right. Yeah. So that's like, come on. But then the last reason is that I think just from a public perception standpoint, grocery stores do not want you to know how much food they waste.
Yeah.
They don't want you to know that, like, part of the way that they've decided to market themselves and keep a customer base, a steady kind of loyal customer base, is by making sure that everything they do sell always, 100% of the time, looks perfect, and that they set it up in the grocery store with, spray machines that keep the vegetables always like a little dewy and a little wet, so they look fresh.
Right.
And they literally have certain they have different lights that have different light waves that make the produce, literally, when the light bounces off and then comes to your eye, it looks brighter and more colorful and more fresh to you. So they do all these things to make it appear. They always keep their vegetable and fruit carts full. So there's this kind of perception of abundance, constant abundance.
Right.
So they're willing to take those losses if it means that they can keep customers, because the American consumer, and this is again where it comes back on us, and I would say to all the listeners and then to all your friends that you talk to about this, remember that, like, our desires factor into this as well. So if we turn our nose up at this stuff and we don't buy it, that the grocery store takes note and then they don't sell it. And actually, I would say it's so structural now that it's not even like, it's not at a point where we even have a choice anymore. It's not like the grocery store tests out, oh, let's put out some ugly stuff or some maybe not perfectly fresh looking stuff and see if people take it, or let's tell them there's wasted food and see if someone wants to get it donated. They just don't tell you anymore. So it's to a certain extent, there's just not enough information for us to take a stand. But remember that when you're in the grocery store, like, we feed into this as well when we don't take the stuff that looks ugly, or, we don't shoot, there's so many structural issues, but those are I say those are the main reasons you're not seeing grocery stores doing this.
Well, yeah, their job is to respond to consumer demand. They're trying to make their job as easy as possible. We turn around and we want them to do one thing, but the messaging we give them is incredibly different.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that we would ever, we actually touched on this before we got on the air, we would ever get as obsessed with perfection as Japan apparently is? Recently, well, Japan, they're known for their bonsai, right? These beautiful, perfectly sculpted mini trees. And I know there's some bonsai lovers who's going to yell at me that that's the wrong description. But anyway, that's how I see it as a layperson. Okay. That's how I see it. But they've got this obsession in Japan with perfect produce. So I'm listening to the radio the other day and they're I think it was on the BBC, and they're interviewing these people who had been to Japan, and they were selling grapes, one bunch of grapes for $360.
Okay.
And in the process of making these perfect, you can go online, you look up perfect produce in Japan. You'll see grapes individually, hanging on the vine with a little hat on the and melons lined up perfectly. I don't even know how to get the melon to grow this way, but they're perfectly round. Again, the little hat individually, so the rain won't touch it when it comes down. They are obsessed. And this perfect produce now is, the intent is to give it away as gifts, apparently, more than anything. And I don't know if you're aware, at least this is the way they were telling it on the BBC, which is that when you're in a business meeting, when you go to a meeting, you're supposed to bring a gift for the boss.
Okay.
And so people will spend, and obviously the more you spend on the gift, the better you look to the boss. So they will spend $360 on these grapes and give them to the boss.
Right.
In hopes of currying favor. Do you think we'll ever get that bad? Are we headed Are we headed in that direction, or do you think that maybe one day we'll be on the other side where we will start to pass a law similar to France's, which says you cannot, there's too much food waste, there are too many people on the streets homeless or can't get access to good fresh food. Let's, we're going to force you now to donate this at the end of the day.
Well, geez, that's a really interesting question. And I think I'd want to learn firstly a lot more about exactly what it means to the Japanese to have this perfect produce. Is it so much about the shape and size, or is it about just the way it's displayed to customers? Because I know, from what I know of Japanese culture, there's a lot of attention to display, and when you dine out, just kind of perfect setup, and there's also a high attention to quality too. So I would wonder how much of their obsession with perfect produce overlaps with their obsession with high quality stuff, and kind of the general pursuit of perfection in your career and your work and your day-to-day activities. So, I think that's probably a pretty complex issue for them that has a lot of different levels of meaning. So I don't even know if I'm prepared to kind of compare them to us, but I would say from the outside, a lot of other countries around the world, let's say excluding Japan for a moment, would probably ask the same question about the United States. Like, oh, so look at the United States. They're so obsessed with perfect produce. Like, maybe we don't talk about it as much. So in Japan, maybe they're making a point of saying explicitly, publicly, we have the most perfect round produce, and the way we display it is perfect. In the United States, you don't really hear messaging like that. But in a lot of ways, we're still doing that. We're still displaying food so it looks perfectly, and displaying food that only has absolutely no surface blemishes, is the same size, the same exact shape, the same color. So in a lot of ways, we actually already are like Japan, maybe not to the same level of obsession.
Of attention.
I don't know enough about that yet.
This is like, you can only imagine how labor intensive it is to grow that kind of stuff. Right. And apparently there's no shortage of it.
Yeah, I would say a lot of other countries would already look at us and say we already are obsessed with perfection. I would agree that that's to a large part true, even if we don't acknowledge it or talk about it as much. But I think we're headed in a direction, again, given how fortunate we've been to grow so quickly, and a lot of the national media attention you've been seeing given to the issue of food waste. I think if there's one thing the United States is obsessed with, it's with efficiency and growth and kind of capitalist production. And there's going to be a lot of people who can do a ton of social good by also eliminating waste, which ultimately is an economic inefficiency. So I would say hopefully we can kind of use our own obsession with eliminating inefficiency and creating value through production to also create social and cultural value that moves us more towards being more accepting of food that is imperfect. So that'd be, I think I do think we're heading in a more positive direction. And it's just going to take a lot of effort and a lot of education and awareness.
Right. And what I'm thinking too is that admitting it is half the battle. And like you say, we are so obsessed with the efficiency, with capitalist greed, that we don't recognize waste as being part of that somehow. And which is just, I mean, I keep bringing the chicken up, but you give me a chicken, I can make I just did this the other day. I made 6 meals. No, actually, I still have some. I had a minimum of 6 meals for 2 families out of 1 chicken. Okay, that's how efficient I am. And the bones I turned around and gave to somebody else's animal. I am not. I hate to see waste. I'm just constantly passing things down the line, and it really boggles my mind when I realize how much the average person. I mean, sometimes there's some people I can't even go to their house because anything that's left on the plate, you put your fork down for a second and somebody's scraping your plate, and I'm like, what the? Because I just can't take that level of I call it fake efficiency. It's the person who's like, oh, well, my house always has to be neat, but they never do anything. They literally never do anything. And yes, your house is neat because you don't do anything. You don't do your own taxes. You don't cook. You don't have kids. Just like a myriad of things that I can think of, that people will pride themselves on being able to, keep up the charade, but that's because everything else is falling apart.
Sure.
It's like,
I think you're totally right. Acknowledging it is the biggest step in the battle, and that goes for the majority of social and environmental issues. Just at the very least, first acknowledging there's a problem, and that's certainly true with most environmental issues. It first takes us admitting there's an issue, admitting there's waste and inefficiencies that contribute to it. They are not internalized in the market, and therefore you see cheaper products, even though the cost to the environment and public health is externalized elsewhere, and people end up paying it through healthcare, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yes, there's a huge structural problem, and it starts with admitting it.
Right. And I could even see if we get over this hump and, even in terms of, let's just take the soup kitchen analogy, or example, we have a place here on the island that is a consignment type shop. And it's one of the things that they do is they hire people women who have been homeless or, otherwise can't make ends meet, to work in the shop. And, why are people end up on the streets, let's say they need, or sometimes they technically have a roof over their head, but they just can't afford food after they pay their rent. Why are these people, why can we not bring them in and start training them in preparing this stuff? The churches are empty. Let's just face it. Very few people are going to church unless you go to the Mormon church or something where everybody goes and every Sunday. But for all intents and purposes, a lot of the churches are empty. And we think about the mission of the church is supposed to be to feed the poor. One of the missions, I should say, is taking care of the poor. So I like to see things in a very cyclical, or maybe not cyclical, but interrelation, just taking all of these elements. And it's like, well, look, you've got possibly an untrained or a population, or at least a population that might need some retraining, but why not bring them into the mix as part of the picking up the food from the from the supermarkets and bringing it to the church.
Yeah.
Learning how to prepare this stuff, how to start enjoying it, because possibly they've never even eaten some of this stuff. What are some of the tools and the trade skills that we can give back to these people so that they can now, go on to become members of society just like the rest of us?
I'm so glad you brought that up. That's awesome. And I totally agree. And there's actually a really cool initiative out of Oakland through a nonprofit that's a partner of ours, awesome woman who runs that named Dana Fraz. And one of their biggest projects right now is called the Alameda Kitchen. Mm-hmm. And in Alameda, the little island-ish right off of Oakland, there's a community of formerly homeless folks. And the Alameda Kitchen will be training some of them in, should I say, the culinary arts, how to cook, how to prepare meals, paying them a fair wage, and then they will be using all food that would have been wasted. Some of that will come from us, some of that will come from other sources. So they'll make meals, formerly homeless people who receive training, and then they'll sell them at a low cost to the community, including some of those formerly homeless folks in that own community. So it's like this own cycle there of kind of a production that goes directly back to that exact same community, while also creating job training and combating food waste. It's like one of the most awesome holistic initiative like this that I've heard of. And there's so many ways to do that.
Oh, that's so awesome. And, when you were talking, I was just remembering, because you were talking about the different places where they're sourcing things from. I would not be surprised, and maybe this is the motivation we need to use, but if somebody owns their own business and they have that lemon tree that's dropping lemons, they can probably get a tax write-off and money, for donating. Mm-hmm. Money talks. And sometimes, it's kind of knowing these fine points of the law, but I'm pretty sure that if someone owns their own business and they have that stuff rotting on the ground, which, could be sold for X amount, and they donate it at that amount that it could be sold for, I'm pretty sure they could get a tax break. So if anybody out there is a CPA and wants to chime in on this and let our listeners know whether or not this works, maybe that's the kick in the pants that some people need to understand. Yes, I can donate that. I found 5 minutes. I could stick it in a box.
Right, exactly. A monetary incentive would help a lot. And I think, I'm not sure, I can't speak to whether or not those tax incentives that would obviously be ideal currently exist. But I do know from what I've heard from just the community and reading up is that they're still not kind of strong enough or clear enough or obvious enough or communicated well enough. So whether they do exist, it sounds like it's still like we need some more bulk there. It needs to be easier for businesses to get access to this info, and then it needs to be a really strong tax incentive so that it exactly get that food to someone who can eat it.
We know that the Clintons and the Trumps of the world know these ins and outs of the law, so we just need their lawyers or accountants to tell us what to do, right? So, because apparently people don't like revealing their tax documents when they're running for office. And there's a reason for that, right? So just as a closing note, because I should let you go, as a closing note, what are some of the things, give me 2 things right now that people can do to eliminate food waste, other than obviously purchasing, becoming part of your club. What are some other things very simple ways that people can just do this for themselves?
Okay, number 1, the biggest thing you can do is eliminate food waste just in your own home. So the home is the single largest source of food waste in the entire country. And that might seem at first counterintuitive, like what? Homes are small compared to restaurants and grocery stores. But think about that for a moment. Where does most of the food ultimately end up? It ends up at your home, even if it was grown on huge farms and sold at huge grocery stores. Ultimately, on aggregate, the homes, the 300 million folks that live in homes across the country are what makes up the bulk of all of the food buying. So your home is the largest source of food waste. And so if you can cut back on food that sits in your fridge and goes bad because it's at the back, that's one of the biggest issues. And again, I will keep bringing up Just Eat It because I think it's so cool and inspiring that visually it's one of the things that they show you is like we have these huge refrigerators and it makes us feel good to fill it up to the max. And we just have all these sauces and vegetables and dairy and meat that's just sitting around going
Right.
bad because we want to fill it up and we're like, oh, we'll eat it, we'll get to it, but we forget like food goes bad, and that's why historically people have had to buy food every day or every other day, and before we had all of these ways of preserving food so well and using preservatives and refrigerators. So, but even then, our food still goes bad. So a lot of it goes bad in the refrigerator. A lot of it goes bad because people are unwilling to eat leftovers. So they scrape their leftovers into the trash. Or they look at, this is another thing, they look at a veggie or a fruit that has maybe grown a mild little moldy spot. And the majority of us, again, it's amazing how quickly you can lose this knowledge in just a matter of a generation. But our grandparents used to know this stuff, and for some reason now we don't know. So we've lost this knowledge. If we could remember how to cook and what it means when a food looks fresh and when it's going bad, and the ways that you can still eat the rest of the fruit or veggie, even if you just cut off. I use the example of a tomato all the time because it's so visceral for me. When I was younger, I would throw out whole tomatoes that had a little moldy spot because no one ever told me otherwise. And so I would just be like, oh, gross, mold. And the whole tomato was gone, even though I could cut off a little bit of that mold and eat the rest of it. It was the same with apples. It was the same. If there was a little bruise, I didn't want it, with an apple. Same with a peach. Like, cut the bruise off, you eat it the rest of it. This perception of you'll somehow get sick or it's somehow gross if there's a little thing. So that's,
After 20 years, I'm still training my husband. He comes to me all the time. He like have, like a piece of cheese. He's like, I don't think it's good anymore. I'm like, cut the mold off. Look at underneath. It's perfectly fine. Yep. Okay. Yep. There's people in Appalachia, and I know this because I went to a school that did these missions to Appalachia. They're eating the mold too. Okay. So besides which, cheese is mold. But I understand. You don't want the dangerous stuff, obviously. But it's like sometimes it's just,
right?
That's exactly it.
Healthy, right? So we need to educate ourselves.
I was making a salad over the weekend, and I had this tomato that was a little too soft for a salad, and I actually almost threw it away. I started to throw it into the compost, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's not bad. It's just soft for a salad. And so I went and I got a couple more tomatoes, and I pureed it up, and I made a sauce.
Hey, there you go. Right.
You cook with it, right?
Use it for something else, right? So if we can increase our own awareness and education of the different things we can do with food in the different stages of its kind of life cycle. That's one thing. And the second thing is, that's the biggest personal thing I think you can do. Just be so conscious of food waste in your own home. And anytime you eat out, certainly take leftovers home. The amount of stuff that they throw out at restaurants is unfortunate. And then the second thing is look for initiatives in your community. Again, I know a lot about what's going on in the Bay Area, but there's a huge country out there, and there's a lot of opportunity. And there's a lot of opportunity to do things like what I described with the Alameda Kitchen with Food Shift. There's Food Recovery Network, which was actually started by Imperfect co-founders 4 years ago when they were in college. They recover and donate wasted food from campus dining halls on college campuses across the country. They're the biggest student-led food waste movement in the country. So if you're a student or know students, tell them to get involved in their local chapter or start a chapter. It's actually really easy, and they're always looking to grow. And then there's a lot of nonprofits probably in your area that do some sort of food running activity where they go around and collect food from restaurants and cafes and other catering companies. That is still perfectly fine. So whether you want to volunteer for that, or again, if you're an entrepreneurial, intrepid individual, start it. Like, there's a lot of places in the country where none of this stuff exists. So look at the models that have been successful, and then get out there and do it. But you don't have to start it to get involved. You don't have to start it to support it. You can donate money. You can just tell your friends. There's so many little things to support all these initiatives. Those are the biggest two things I would say.
Right. Right. I had to, it's one of those things that I always have done intuitively. And I didn't realize I actually had to teach my daughter this, but she's about to be 13, and she didn't want to go to camp this summer, and I kind of missed the ball on sending her to camp. So I was like, okay, you're going to be home. You're going to do stuff around the house. So I made her clean out the fridge. I was like, the fridge is a disaster. Go clean it out. So I was like, do this door one day, do the next door the other day, do one shelf, whatever. So, but then I was like, where did stuff go? And what she had done is she put all the stuff that, is going to last longer, like the pickles and the pickles and the pickles, and the yogurts and all that stuff. Basically, the condiments, all that stuff was in the front, and all the food was in the back.
Exactly.
And I was like, no. You got to put the condiments and stuff that's not going to go bad in the back, and then put the stuff that we should move in the front,
Right. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, that's actually to just add to that real quick. There's in Just Eat It. There's one really cool thing that they did, which I still haven't tried, and I need to, is get whether it's an ice cube tray or something else. Maybe it's even just a Tupperware. Stick a little Tupperware in your fridge that says, and then put a little note on it that says, "Use this first." Maybe it's a half of an avocado or a half tomato or half an onion that you chopped up for a meal and then you threw in there. And let's be honest, like, I've done it. Everyone's done it. You let that stuff rot because you're like the next day you're like, I don't want that because I don't want an avocado and whatever. It's so there's all these reasons and also another thing. Oh man, just don't get me started on how big the serving sizes of vegetables and fruits are because of a lot of the perfection we seek in the American grocery store. A lot of the stuff that's sold is huge. So you get you want to make a salad with a little red cabbage and you cut like a third of the cabbage off and then the other 2/3 sits in the fridge. So reminding ourselves that, hey, listen. Like, food waste is not a good thing. You're paying for that waste. Ultimately, you're wasting money. Find a creative way to use that whole cabbage before it goes bad. Put a little ice tray there and says, use this first. And even if you don't want more cabbage, force yourself to find a creative way to use it. Right. Or just don't buy the smaller things at the grocery store. Yeah, there's all sorts of ways you can create these little mental reminders. Absolutely.
Well, I mean, I had another situation last night where I had made a salad, and usually I will dress the salad, but I wasn't sure that the other people were on board with finishing the salad because I make a big salad, they're not hungry. I make a small salad, mom, make another salad. So I'm like, come on, guys. So I made this in between size salad, right? Sure, and I had a jar that I had made my own homemade dressing, all local ingredients, by the way. And so I made my salad dressing. It's on the side. And then my husband says, well, do you want me to put this on the salad? And I'm like, I don't know what the heck you guys are going to eat. Because if we put it on the salad, the lettuce is going to wilt by tomorrow. Right. And if you don't eat it. Yeah. So if you don't put it on and toss it unless you're going to eat the whole thing. He's like, well, I think we can eat the whole thing. I was like, okay, then put it on. But that if you dress that whole salad, that you're going to end up with wilty lettuce by the end of the meal. Right. If you're lucky, it'll last till the next day. But chances are it's going to be pretty gross and the texture is going to be all, slimy and nobody's going to want to eat it. So I think those are some of the other little tricks that we can be aware of. Yeah. Same thing with the fruit salad. If it starts to look really watery, throw it in a pot with a dot of butter and now you have some syrup for your pancakes. There's just so many different ways that we can play with this stuff. Yeah. And, just don't, I think like you said, we are just too hot to toss things in the trash based on looks and, not because it really warrants being in the trash.
Yeah. That salad example is a great example. I actually totally understand that no one likes wilty lettuce. So what I started doing with salads same thing. I'll make a huge salad, dress the whole thing, and be like, oh no, I'm not going to eat the whole thing. I started the next day, I'll make a rice and bean dish and just throw that and all the veggies in it and kind of mix it up so it kind of becomes like a veggie bowl, So that way you don't, the wilted salad just kind of tastes like sauteed spinach. It's it's not like it's bad for you. It just doesn't. No, the texture's not great. Yeah. Well,
and that's a good point too because the Chinese actually cook their lettuce. I mean, we don't think of it, but you go to Chinatowns and a lot of times you'll find fried lettuce in your food. Right. So it's not. We don't do it, but it doesn't mean that it's wrong if you do cook it. Right. So there's always another thing. One last comment I want to make. Because you jogged my memory on this was there was a book written for probably a decade ago about bananas, and it was the origin of the banana and how nobody wanted to eat a banana in Victorian society because of what it looked like, and then they had to do a big promotion on bananas. But the Chiquita Banana song that was big. Yeah, you want to sing it for us?
Elementary school. I'm Chiquita Banana, right? Is that one?
Yeah. You can go on.
No, it's okay. But you can play it at the end of the episode.
If you remember in that jingle, she says that don't put your bananas in the refrigerator.
Exactly.
Right? Yep. Do you know why that was?
Because bananas like the climate of a very, very tropical equator.
Yes and no. Well, this is the deal. You put it in the fridge and it looks like it's going bad, right? The skin turns black.
Yeah, it turns black. Yeah, exactly.
But it actually keeps the banana fresher longer. They wanted people to eat their bananas as fast as possible so they could go and buy more bananas.
Wow, really?
So you put them on the...
It was just a marketing tactic.
It was a marketing tactic. This is what the guy who wrote the book says. Wow. And so you keep them on the counter. They rot faster. You got to go buy more bananas.
Right. Whoa. Okay. I'm going to
So,
try that
yeah.
out. I'm totally going to test that out and see
Yeah.
if that's true. I believe
Yeah.
it. Wow.
But yeah, I mean, so many of the things that we take, I guess this is the take home point of the entire episode, is so many of the things that we take for granted because we've been trained that way. We've been taught that way. We don't realize how much has been thrust upon us by marketing tactics of supermarkets, of
Totally.
specific industries that have their different spin on, why we should do things the way we do.
Totally.
So anything else that you would like to add before I let you go?
I created a coupon code, literally just Nutrition Heretic. Anyone who's listening and is in the area can use it to get 50% off a box. So.
All right. Well, and how? Okay. Well, I guess if people want to get in touch with you, our guest heretic today, Evan Hazelett of imperfectproduce.com. Visit imperfectproduce.com and get information if you live in the Bay Area, or San Francisco, to get on his list and get your yummy, imperfect, delicious, sweet, juicy produce delivered to your door once a week. And thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for doing what you do, because it's so important, as we've illuminated in so many different ways why it's important. But you know what? Monsanto, the last episode that ran was up on Monsanto, and one of their propositions is that we need their stuff because there's not enough food for the world. There is enough food for the world. It's just that we threw it in the trash. So thank you, Evan, for your time. And hopefully we'll see you around soon when you start expanding.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
The Nutrition Heretic podcast is a production of Savor the Journey, LLC. Our audio editor is Nikola Popovich. Our podcast manager is Crystal McLean, and our operations manager is Linda Hansen. I'm your host, Adrian Hugh, the Nutrition Heretic. You can find us at nutritionheretic.com, where you can download the Nutrition Heretic's free shit list of 7 health foods to avoid like the plague. You can also listen to previous episodes at nutritionheretic.com/podcast. Be sure to like us on social media for updates. Our Facebook page is facebook.com/nutritionheretic and on Twitter at NutriHeretic. Contact us with show ideas, questions, or if you just want to be a guest. And don't forget to rate our podcast on iTunes and Stitcher. Thanks.